And welcome to First Bite, the Pride of Detroit preview podcast for your Detroit Lions. My name's Jeremy Reisman. I'm the managing editor at Pride of Detroit and your co-host for First Bite. Welcome to the show. Thank you for joining us. I know it's been a rough 2 weeks, but we're hoping to turn things around this week, and we have a big show for you for week 3. But before we get to my guests, it's Lions Cardinals week. Let's welcome in my co-host, Ryan Matthews.
What's up?
Hey, buddy. How you doing?
Oh, I'm enjoying the prospect of seeing the Lions turn things around in the desert.
Are you saying that to convince yourself? Because you didn't convince me there.
Well, then I guess it didn't work.
Fair enough. All right. Every week when we do this preview podcast, we like to bring someone from the opponent's side of the side of the field, someone who knows the other team, an expert in that field. And this week is more of the same, except we've got a very special guest. Ed Smith joins us from the Believe in Cardinals podcast. He's also a former NFL tight end, and he actually spent some time with the Lions. He was our guest last year too, because the Lions and Cardinals seem to play each other every single week. Ed, thanks for rejoining the show, bud.
Hey, Jeremy, Ryan, great to be here, and buck up, fellas. It'll get better.
You would know, right? You would know. The Cardinals have seen them some dark times. They've seen some good times. By the way, Ed Smith speaks on Twitter. Let's get into this year, because obviously things are looking pretty bright for the Cardinals. Just a couple of years after being bottom of the league type of team. But this kind of offseason was a little, I don't know, quiet in terms of overall things. They didn't quite make a ton of moves. There was one big move, which we'll get to, but what do you think of their kind of overall offseason philosophy of just like, maybe let's just let everything kind of percolate and second year under Cliff Kingsbury, we got the guys we want. Let's just kind of get them up to speed and maybe not add a ton of people in free agency or lose a ton of people in free agency.
Well, it was actually really a pleasure, a nice surprise, because, as we know, in the NFL, too much turnover, all that does is create chaos sometimes. You are constantly trying to mold guys into the system, not just on the field, off the field as well, because it takes a lot. A roster of 53, if you're constantly churning it, guys don't have an opportunity just to get to know each other, get to work with each other, et cetera, et cetera. And obviously with everything with the dealing with the coronavirus during the offseason, that was like that almost forced some teams to be a little quieter. There wasn't a lot of movement. You really couldn't have free agents in and out to even see and want to sign them. So, like I said, it was kind of forced on us a little bit, but really nice to see what the Cardinals did. Not going out there and just bringing a whole bunch of dudes in. And, I think we as you can see, we're starting to kind of build something here. Hopefully, we're on that uptick, and we all know it takes a while. I'm trying to alert everybody out here, hey, don't start buying your Super Bowl tickets yet, and, slow your roll. But, at least, after these first 2 weeks, it's let's just say this much, and I don't no offense, guys, it's much better to be 2-0 than 0-2. So.
Yeah, and one of the really easy ways to get to 2-0 is when you do acquire a dude, and I'm talking about DeAndre Hopkins. I mean, that was just, I think, the biggest move of the entire offseason, and it's already seeming to pay dividends. Are you noticing just a huge uptick in the offense from his addition?
Absolutely, Ryan. And the thing that, what shocked us all, I think, was they got DeAndre for like a song and a dance. You got rid of, we were having issues, let's call it that, with David Johnson over the last few years, whether it be injury or not really feeling like he wanted to be here. And all of a sudden you were able to get rid of him and then bring in this probably top 3 wide receiver in the league. Yeah. And then to boot, he signs an extension because he actually wants to be here. It's like, we're running around out here like just, oh my God, it's like after all the years, especially a couple of years or so ago, all the bad, and all of a sudden you see this happen. It's like, wow, you almost want to pinch yourself, just make sure you're not dreaming this, because, we've had so many instances where we bring old free agents in here or try to use somebody's, not necessarily trash, but, try to what's the word I'm looking for? Kind of
recycle or repurpose. Yeah.
There you go. Want to recycle everybody else's stuff. And now we finally, looks like we have our own, along with our franchise quarterback. and that's a great building block for success. And like I said, we just got to take it one step at a time now.
Did it surprise you that they made that move, considering, they just drafted Andy Isabella and Christian Kirk, and they have Larry Fitzgerald? Like, it seems like an already really crowded wide receiver room for them to go out and be super aggressive and get another, like you said, top three, and maybe that's being a little too generous, a little too modest. He might be a top one wide receiver in the league.
Yeah, I would have. The fact that they pulled it off was the biggest surprise.
Mm-hmm.
If and it was one of those situations where if word would have got out that they had an opportunity to do it and didn't, then you catch holy, crap,
Yeah.
So in this instance, it was one of those things where, I don't know how they talked O'Brien and the Texans into this one, but it's almost, like I said, it was almost like it was too good to be true. And then you bring him in here, like I said, with, a budding young quarterback, a veteran in Larry Fitzgerald, who just a consummate pro, accepts his role. And, a lot of wide receivers, in Larry's position, they would have, well, why are you going out and bringing this dude in? Whereas Larry is like, oh my God, you take one, I'll be two, and do everything I have to do for this to be successful. And it's, it's really like I said, just couldn't ask for more from the offseason as far as that position and what they were able to pull off.
So even to start the season, I mean, they get DeAndre Hopkins, they get a big name, but then they're faced with, with facing the NFC champion, San Francisco 49ers, right out of the gate. So, I mean, if you want to get tested, you get tested. And they came up big in game one. I think that was one of the biggest week one shockers to me, was just the way that they were able to knock off what seemed to be like the team to beat still in the NFC. So, I mean, what kind of momentum are they building here now after picking up another win in week two?
Yeah, that game in San Francisco, and I will say it was almost like the perfect storm, perfect timing. No off season to prepare. Everybody's dealing with the same issues. So, nobody gets a pass here or a pass there. But, week one against the 49ers, no fans in the stands, 49ers riddled with injury. And that's why myself and my partner believe in the Arizona Cardinals. Devon Adams, we took a little flack out here because we didn't pick the Cardinals. And, some people did, and, they made sure they let us know. But I had no idea they would be able to go up there and pull off the victory. But, what was really impressive, started out looking like sometime the old Cardinals, no ball control, offense sputtering, nothing looked like it was working. Then all of a sudden they took control of that game and literally took it to the NFC champion of, the 49ers. And that was the most impressive part, because they could have just reverted back to old, but they actually turned it up a notch. And then you would have thought that the Cardinals were the team that were favored in that game, because everything started to click. And then, you pull off that victory, and then, because of what the Washington football team, all of a sudden they're coming in here and everybody's thinking, well, this will be a bigger test because, now you got Washington coming here. And they look just as impressive last week, even more so than, what they did against the 49ers, more control. I look at Kyler Murray, and you guys might be gamers too. We've all played our Madden in different games and stuff like that. That little, when you get to hit the turbo button, mm-hmm. and all of a sudden Murray looks like he's got a turbo button somewhere under his uniform, because he seems like he can hit that extra speed or that next level. And, he looks a lot faster than everybody else out there on the field. Now, like I said, once again, I'm slow on the roll because it is just 2 weeks into the season, but they do look good, and we have some momentum. And now we'll be facing, you guys coming in here, and this will be another true test. You can't let down on these type of games.
I want to talk a little bit about the defense, because I feel like that was the side of the ball that obviously needed the most improvement. I think they were 32nd in passer rating allowed in 2019. You look at that first game against the 49ers, they get a big fourth down stop on the goal line. Garoppolo's, driving to win the game in the red zone. They get a big stop there. Do you see this defense turning things around this year, or is it just kind of a case where, okay, we played Washington, Dwayne Haskins hasn't been a great quarterback so far, Garoppolo's had his kind of ups and downs, Kittle was injured in that game. What are your thoughts on where this defense is? Is it for real yet, or are you kind of still playing the wait and see thing?
It's a work in progress. Don't like to jump the gun on anything. One of the things, and you guys remember from last year's game, we, all through the season, we couldn't cover a tight end with a blanket.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, if you gave us a blanket and said, put it on him, we'd have found a way to not hit the mark, right? Hawkinson, we made him look like he was going to be the next Kittle. You run down the list. We already had, if you guys played us every week last week, Hawkinson would already be nominated for the Hall of Fame, regardless of what he did the rest of his career. That's how bad we were in covering tight ends. You get, fast forward a year, they haven't had a chance to do everything on the field because obviously circumstance, no off season, no preseason, very limited time together. But I see an improvement in nothing else, if in nothing else, the fact that our guys are flying around a little more now. And I think that comes with familiarity with the defensive scheme, and Vance Johnson another year to kind of coach these guys. A couple of years ago, it looked like we were running in mud. Our guys were maybe it was because we switched schemes and guys were not confident in what they were doing. But I used to remark all the time, it looks like those guys are just, they like have no fire, nothing, they don't want to hit anybody. And then you fast forward, like I said, we got Buddha out there Buddha Baker flying around, with bad intentions, man. This dude's not a big guy, but he's, just covering everything. And this all started last year at the end of the season. Obviously we got Chandler Jones up front, and then they went out and got Isaiah Simmons, draft pick, he's a work in progress. He is definitely, with no offseason, going to take some time to figure it out, not just in his head, but also the speed of the game on the field is going to be a problem for him. But if they use him situationally, he's going to be an added benefit. And then throw in Patrick Peterson over the last couple of years with wanting to be traded, and then last year starting the season off with the PED suspension. He's got something to prove this year as well. So it's almost like a nice mix of, we got some talent there, got guys that need to prove something. We got some young guys who are going to eventually work into the system. And we got a guy that just got paid, and I'm sure he wants to prove that he was worth every penny that they gave him in Buddha. So, a lot of good things on that side of the ball as well.
Jeremy, you want to jump into this injury report we have?
Well, I want to ask about one more thing, because the Cardinals did add a player that I think Lions fans know quite well. Devon Canard was a guy who the Lions kind of surprisingly cut this offseason. I know he was in on that big fourth down stop in week 1. How's he looked overall through 2 weeks?
He's looked good, and the thing I'll remark on again, the fact that these guys did not have an off season to work together, and then, limited to, I know everybody was sitting at home with their tablets, probably looking at scheme and updating their playbooks and whatever they could be given. But then you get to training camp, and that is modified, and no preseason games. The fact that he has been able to gel and make an impression in this deep, it's amazing. I couldn't imagine, fellas, going into a season with no preseason games. I know we always talk about how they're sometimes meaningless, but 1 or 2 at the least, just to get up to speed and to see what everybody's doing out there, particularly some of the guys you just mentioned. It's remarkable. So yeah, definitely looks good in our scheme. And one man's trash is another man's treasure. Was that what they said?
Yep.
That's what they say in Detroit.
All right, let's move into that injury report. The Cardinals have actually stayed fairly healthy through 2 weeks, which is obviously fortunate given what we've seen around the NFL through 2 weeks, especially last week. They are missing a couple big players, though. Robert Alford unfortunately suffered another season-ending injury in training camp. Can you tell me about how his replacements have looked? I know Byron Murphy is a guy who's played a little nickel, played a little on the outside, and then he's got a veteran in Dre Kirkpatrick there to play opposite Patrick Peterson. How have those two held up?
They've held up pretty good. I'm not sure they've really been tested yet. We saw the 49ers just, they've been decimated with injury. We went into that game, and they were literally already down a couple of wide receivers. Then Kittle goes down, and it looked really good for us, and primarily because, like I said, I think the Niners were a little fighting with one hand behind their back a little bit with all the injuries. Then we get Haskins and the Washington football team come in here, and they found a way to make us look pretty good too, just because Yeah. And then I spoke with someone over in Washington yesterday or last week. I did their show, and they were really adamant about after that win against Philly, we look really good. And I asked him about Haskins specifically because I still am not sold on him.
Yeah.
Man, he was fully lock, stock, and barrel. Like, this is his year, And then I think we saw a little bit of what I kind of have envisioned. Haskins, I think he's limited athletically. I don't think he is he's a young quarterback, still has a lot to learn, but just not really, I didn't see him coming in here and testing our defensive secondary or even, anybody much. This is the week I'm scared about, though, because of Matt Stafford. Oh, my goodness. When that dude decides to throw it, and when you guys let it loose, it can look really, really good. It's just a matter of, are you going to get good Matt or bad Matt? Or good lines or bad lines. So if you guys come in here with guns ablazing, this could turn into a shootout. And our secondary, obviously minus Alford, could be really tested. But we'll see how that all plays out.
Yeah, and then on the other side of the ball, when it comes to the offensive line, it looks like the Cardinals might be looking at Mason Cole maybe missing another game. You talked, Ed, a little bit about just without a preseason, without a training camp, and you're already on your second string center. That's one of the most important positions, I think, personally, along the entire offensive line, especially in today's modern NFL. You see some of these big time centers, like even here in Detroit, like Frank Ragnow, making a huge difference. So do you see that being something that might be a problem for the Cardinals moving forward? Do they need to get him back?
Absolutely, Ryan, and and you bring up a great point. The center for any NFL team, any team, college, whatever it is, obviously as you go up the ladder, the schemes and responsibilities get a lot more. But a center in the NFL he might be the third most important person on that offensive unit. Your left tackle, obviously protecting the blind side. Your quarterback, number one, obviously. That center, though, along with your quarterback, is so important. And people think it's just all about blocking. No, it's about setting everything up prior to, snap of the ball, identifying, protection, sliding them this way, doing that. If quarterback and center are not on the same page and what's happening, because the quarterback's viewing everything, the center is at the same time communicating to the line, left and right, to get everybody on the same page, so you don't have somebody just running through and destroying a quarterback, or getting the blocking scheme, so you can get to those next levels and turn those 2 and 3 yard rushes into, 60-yard breakaways down the field. So your center is so important, and it's all about timing. It's all about those dudes being on the same page with the quarterback. And when a guard can be out of the lineup, even a tackle, you don't feel it as much as when your center's not there. So that's something really, we'll see how long Cole's going to be out, but the sooner he gets back, the better, especially for a young quarterback like Kyler Murray. All the help he can get would and will be appreciated.
All right, we'll take a break, and when we come back, we're going to get more into the matchups of this game. We'll talk about the Lions, if they'll be able to stop this hot Arizona offense, and then what Arizona will do to try to stop Kenny Golladay, who's coming back, hopefully, and this Lions offense and that hot or cold Matthew Stafford. So stick around. We'll be right back on First Bite. All right, give me 1 second. We'll jump right back into it. How we doing, chat? Let's see if we have any questions really quick before we jump back. If we don't pressure on him and the receivers take the DBs downfield, our line and linebackers won't be able to contain his scramble. Yep, that's a big problem. I really liked Isaiah Simmons coming into this year's draft. I think he'll get really good really quick this year. How's he been so far? I know his PFF score is pretty bad, but PFF isn't the end-all be-all. So
it's really going to take him some time. Like I said, without an off season, to see how fast that game is on the field, man. And he's made a couple rookie mistakes, looking in the backfield, and dudes are giving them that double move, or the out in and out, or out and in, and they've been eating him up a little bit. You can tell he's a rookie.
Yeah, that's interesting. I think was he the one that gave up a big pass against the Niners to the running back?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
That would be interesting.
That's the one he got caught looking in the backfield.
Yeah,
and it looked like the running back was going out, and boom, inside, and see you later.
That's something that, Ryan, I imagine you're thinking the same thing I am. DeAndre Swift out wide.
Well, I'm thinking that, but because I'm a Lions fan and I'm a glutton for punishment, I'm just thinking about how Jeff Okuda looks like a rookie too.
True.
So.
Fair point. All right. Well, let's take a second and we'll get right back into this so we can get you on your way. Okay, Ed?
Sounds good, fellas.
All right. 1 second. We'll jump right back in. And we are back on First Bite, the Pride of Detroit preview podcast. It's Lions and Cardinals week 3, the same old matchup that we seem to get. I think these teams have played 7 out of the last 8 years, which is crazy for a non-divisional opponent. But we know these teams pretty well already, even though the last time they faced off, it was Kyler Murray's first game. So let's talk about maybe what's changed. And we have to start right with the Arizona offense, because I think Lions fans are coming out of this Green Bay game, coming really out of the Bears' fourth quarter and being like, this is a daunting task. We've got a wide receiver crew that's probably the best in the NFL from top to bottom. We've got a quarterback who's a dual threat, who's got that turbo button, as Ed said in the first segment. Ed, is there anything you've seen other teams do, whether it was last year or this year, to slow down this Arizona passing attack?
Well, I think last year our biggest issue was non-explosive plays, and a lot of that came because we didn't, obviously we added that grace piece like we talked about DeAndre Hopkins. We didn't have that last year. Mm-hmm. Larry, God bless him, Larry's not a burner, never was in his career. He's turned into more of like a small tight end. That dude can, rove the middle of the field with the best of them from that slot position, and his blocking is unbelievable from a wide receiver standpoint. You go out and you add a DeAndre Hopkins, you get a little more seasoning on Kyler Murray, and it looks really, and you never want to say unstoppable, but it looks very fluid early for me. I was expecting the Cardinals to come out, especially our offensive line was really, I think we were rated one of the lowest of all last year.
Yeah.
And for them to come out in these first couple games, and I'll throw in another caveat, what's also helped them to look as good as they have cohesively is impressive. I think that was also helped by the addition of Kenyon Drake, though. Mm-hmm. Obviously, we had David Johnson last year. David wasn't hitting holes. David was laying down in holes last year. Kenyon came in, and all of a sudden he started hitting holes, picked up the tempo and the pace, and he made the offensive line look, I think, impressively. He made the offensive line better himself last year because he was really down the hill. They got a little confidence, and the next year everything started to work. Coming into this year so far, you got Kenyon, who's still doing his thing, but you throw Kyler Murray into the mix. Kyler's, game 1 against San Francisco, he had 91 yards rushing. He led the team in rushing. So when your quarterback is adding that on, and the thing I like about Kyler, he's not trying to extend plays a lot of times. He's scrambling when he has to, and he'll get down on that button a second, give you that slide, and live to fight another day. So what he's doing, he's actually helping the offensive line statistically. They're not going to give up a whole bunch of sacks when he's scrambling and getting out of there. And his elusiveness is one thing. And actually, you add Kenyon Drake to the mix. It really does. Everything looks nice and cozy right now. We'll see what you guys come in here as far as bringing pressure. I know the big thing last week, everybody was talking about the Washington football team. They sacked Wentz, 8 times in week 1? So that was the big thing. Well, they're going to come in there. And because of, Kyler Murray, he's like a slippery fish, man. You can't contain him. And like I said, he got that turbo button. And then the thing that, and I'll talk about something that concerns me real quick. We did a little better this past week against Washington. But in the first game against San Francisco, I saw a lot of our horizontal attack, which was, nothing was downfield. Everything was sideline to sideline, sideline to sideline. And I'm talking, there were a couple plays even looked like they were throwing the ball backwards, Mm-hmm. So it's like, okay, at some point we got to exploit the middle of the field and down the field. And I think in this game against Washington, we did that a couple of times, and that's impressive. As long as we stay on that path, you'll get more yards after catch with your receivers. Instead of throwing on the boundaries, you start getting them into the middle of the field. That even causes more problems for the defense. So if we stay on that path, with all the weapons we have, Kenyon, Larry, Kirk, DeAndre, and then you throw Kyler in there scrambling and doing this thing. Like I said, offense should be pretty hard to kind of wrangle.
Yeah, it's going to be even more difficult to wrangle, Ed, because the Lions have statistically the worst pass rush in the entire NFL. And that's a sad fact.
Ryan, is there somebody in the house and give you a hug, man?
I could use one, Ed. It's been real rough. When you get roughed up by Mitch Trubisky and Kyler Murray's going to be the next quarterback you're facing, it's not great. It's not great, Ed.
But you know what? You know how the NFL works. This will be the week. Everybody will pick against the Lions, and then they'll come out and they'll play the game of their lives, and they'll shut us all up. So hope springs eternal, Ryan.
It's odd though, because like the Lions season under Matt Patricia has worked out that exact way in the first 2 years. We talked about it a little bit on our podcast. The Lions started out 0-2 in 2018. They lose a big game to the Jets in Monday night. They lose to the Niners the next week. They have a home game against the Patriots the next week. Everyone's picking them to lose that game. They go out and win, and then string a win on the next 2 of the 3. Wow. So I think you're right there. But Ryan, let me ask you a question. If you're the defensive coordinator, and we have a lot of armchair defensive coordinators in Detroit right now since everything's going wrong, what is your priority right now? Are you hanging back trying to not allow Kyler Murray to get a big play downfield? Are you stacking the box and being like, listen, we can't let Kyler Murray or Kenyon Drake or anyone run all over this team anymore? What do you do at this point?
At this point, you got to keep Kyler Murray inside the numbers. You can't let him get outside the hash marks. You can't let him do the thing that it seems like he does best. And I know Ed mentioned, it's not a lot of scrambling, but he's just a guy who just screams improv. Like he can make things happen with his legs, with his arm that few other quarterbacks can do. I mean, I'm not trying to put him in rarefied air yet, but like, are we kind of seeing like Lamar Jackson 2.0 this season? I mean, with the way things are trending, it just looks like everything's on the up for Kyler Murray. But I would say that my first concern is stopping Kyler Murray from getting outside the tackle box, because then you stand a chance. Make him throw the ball to beat you.
How has Kyler Murray looked as a passer? Let's take the feet out of the equation for a minute, even though it's very much going to be in the equation on Sunday. But in terms of if the Lions are able to contain him in the pocket, not giving him lanes to escape from, how's he been as a downfield passer in general?
He's been really good, Jeremy. The one thing that obviously is you can't teach height. I mean, that's just something you're born with it or not. The one thing that Ryan brings up is if you can keep him in the pocket, that's to your advantage because of his smaller stature. And that's one of the reasons why I think a lot of our attack is sideline to sideline. It's easier to look out there in terms of being able to drop back and look over the trees in front of you. And then obviously with batted balls and stuff like that's always an issue when you're not as tall as others. He does a great job. He's got a great ball, great touch on his ball. Doesn't try to throw everything through a wall. He's got nice touch. Consistently puts the ball where it's supposed to be. The one knock, like I said, is the fact that if you can keep him in the pocket and make him try to look downfield, that's where we are going to always have some issues because of like I said, his height. But other than that, I mean, if this dude was like 6'1", if he was Drew Brees' size, I would already be thinking, man, he might be one of the best to ever play this game. And not saying he still can't, but like I said, it's just going to always be a little tougher for him because it's so difficult. And that's why I don't think you'll see a whole lot of 7-step drops with him. It's always going to be something 3 to 5 steps. And he's going to be getting it out quick, whether it be slants and stuff like that. And occasionally he'll drop back. But I think more than anything, when they decide to throw the ball down the field, they're going to roll him out left, roll him out right, because that removes the pocket issue. If you can get him out and then create lanes for him out there, he's definitely got an arm to get the ball down the field.
That's a good point. I always forget about his height because he's just like you get mesmerized just watching him play. But I think back to I just watched the 49ers game and one of his passes got batted and intercepted, and I think there was another batted pass. So something it's one way to stop him, but it's not an easy way.
Not easy.
Let's go over to the other side of the ball. When the Lions have it, we talked about it a little bit at the end of the last segment, but Lions are likely getting Kenny Golladay back. practice for the first time on Wednesday in a couple weeks. Lions have kind of been missing that downfield threat without him. Ed, what's the Cardinals' plan here? How have they been at protecting against the deep ball? Is it just a matter of getting their pass rush going, or are they confident in their defensive backs and will be fine just rushing 3, rushing 4?
No, I think this is going to be a game of pressure, Jeremy. And I brought up earlier Matt Stafford. He's a dude you cannot, and I repeat, cannot let him sit back there and be comfortable. If you're going to ruffle him, you got to put pressure in his face. The good thing about Matt, though, bonus on your side, he's an athletic guy, so he can also get out of the pocket as well and get at you. But I'm assuming our plan will be, first and foremost, stop the run game, whatever run game you have. We obviously know you had a little AP, Adrian Peterson back there. He's going to want to get a little get back against his former team. He's going to want to have a really good game. But if you can shut that run down and then make it, force Matt to either have to drop back a bunch of times, but knowing he's dropping back, and then put pressure in his face, mix up the coverages. And obviously, if we have to shadow Galladay with Patrick Peterson, you could always do that. And then the other thing is always keep an eye on where Buddha is, whether he's coming up and filling holes or if he's sitting back there. We're still waiting on, they gave Buddha that big contract. We're still waiting on his first interception. He still hasn't intercepted the ball. And, you would think, being back there as a safety, one would bounce off somebody's helmet, hands, something, anything, and he'd already have that first one. So maybe this is the week he gets one, but I'm thinking the plan of attack is going to be pressure, stop the run, and don't let Matt get comfortable back there. Let's stay after him from start to finish. And we can do that with Chandler Jones and, some of the different, matchups we have. So that'll be really important. And, you guys, I'm sure there's a couple dudes sitting in a meeting room right now, like I used to. You look at your matchup that week and you see Chandler Jones. There's a couple times I'm facing somebody like Strahan or Thomas, somebody like that. I'm like, oh man, it's going to be one of them weeks. So I was as a backup, so I can imagine what the starters are thinking. So, you strap it on, get ready, because he's coming. But I'm sure there's a couple dudes that watching a little extra tape this week.
Yeah, and hopefully one of those dudes is TJ Hawkinson. You mentioned Ed in the Cardinals and Lions matchup in week 1 of last season had just a breakout game. Looked like he was primed to have a breakout rookie season. Things didn't necessarily go that way. Got a little bit a little bit less lucky with an injury, but now into year 2, it seems like he's taken a step. As a former tight end yourself, Ed, like what is it about Hawkinson's game that impresses you?
Well, I like his athletic ability more than anything, and I think we talked about this last year. My nephew, he's up there in Minnesota with the Vikings, and it was Hawkinson, my nephew, and then the tight end that went to Denver. I can't remember his name.
Noah Fant.
Yeah, those dudes. You look at and that's like the new version of tight end. These guys that can run. Yeah. Catch the ball, and then obviously you'll have your big lumbering tight ends that you want to be on the line blocking, that type of thing. But these hybrid tight ends nowadays, they can do so much, and they create such mismatches, especially because now I remember me and my brother talk about all the time. We would love the day when instead of having our hand in the ground, they had us flexed out, in the slot or something like that, or constantly in motion off the ball, and you feel like a glorified big wide receiver, Right. And with Hawkinson, he definitely has the speed, has the hands, and can cause such a matchup problem, as you guys saw last year. Like I said, in that opening game, man, I'm telling you, I mean, I thought, man, I was like, after this game, they're going to start working on this bronze statue already, And then obviously things slowed down a little bit. The one thing about playing tight end in the league now is there is so much responsibility, and there is such a learning curve on, it's not, if they're going to task you to do everything, that means you have to be able to block. You have to be able to pick up blitzes. You got the mental game in terms of reading what's going on out there. People think you just line up and just run around. There's so many things you have to adjust on the fly as far as coverage, blitz pickups, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That's the part of the game that in the beginning sometimes slows the tight ends down. You think about the other positions, running or linemen, all you got to do is learn how to block, Wide receivers, all they want to do is catch balls. Running backs, they need to run the ball and also pick up blitzes. The tight end has to do so much against so many different people too. Yeah. But you guys, I think you have a good one on your hands. It's just a matter of letting them kind of grow a little bit, and hopefully those injuries don't slow them down. That's one of the biggest things with tight ends. I don't care whether you're young or old. There's all of them are just an injury away from, never being the same again. But I like what he obviously seen what he did against us last year. I just hope he doesn't repeat the process. Otherwise, it'll be a long day for these Cardinals out here.
All right, well, let's move to the prediction part. Let's see what we think is actually going to happen. And I don't know if you remember, Ed, but the way we like to do predictions is we do the one thing we think we know. It doesn't have to be a score prediction, but if you want to give one, that's fine too. But just one aspect of the game that you think is going to happen on Sunday. We'll start with Ryan so that you can see what it looks like. Ryan, What's the one thing you think you know about Lions Cardinals Week 3?
The one thing that I think I know is that by the end of Week 3, Kyler Murray might be in the top 5 in rushing yards in the NFL.
Wow.
I don't think that's a huge. I mean, right now he's tied for ninth.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he's got 158 yards, so he's roughly about 80 yards behind the league leader, who happens to be a guy that Lions fans are familiar with, named Aaron Jones.
Yep.
There seems to be an emerging trend. And I think that what you're going to see is a Lions defense that is ill-equipped. You're going to see a Lions defense that's a little bit too slow for a guy who has the juice that Kyler Murray does, to be quite frank.
That's fair. I think that, I mean, we talk a lot about the receivers and Kyler Murray's arm, but both him and the running game there is definitely a problem for this Lions defense, who hasn't been able to stop anyone on the ground. Ed, what's the one thing you think you know about this game?
I got to piggyback off of Ryan. I was thinking the same thing, that Kyler Murray and that doggone that button boy, he's going to be hitting it and squirting out of there, and it's going to be a long day for that front. One of the most discouraging things, and you guys keep an eye on this as the game moves forward, for the defensive linemen, they're in the hunt. And there's nothing more discouraging. Great rush up the field. You think you have him, corralled, and all of a sudden he squirts out there, and 15 yards up the field, he's sliding or he's running into the end zone. Yeah. That can be so demoralizing. And toward the end of the game, especially because, like I said, there was no preseason, guys are going to be a little more gassed. I know it's Week 3, but this is basically like third preseason game of the year if you think about it. Yeah. Toward the end of that game, Ryan, you might be right on spot. He's going to be dancing up the field, and those guys are going to be hands on hips, and it's going to be a lot of frustrated looks out there with the defensive front for the Lions.
So what you're saying, Ed, is you think that I'm going to need another hug.
Have somebody on hand sitting right next to you during the game. You might even ask them to hold your hand during the game, right?
All right, well, I'll try to end this on a somewhat positive note for the Lions. The one thing I think I know about this game is DeAndre Swift is going to lead the Lions in receiving yards. I know Kenny Golladay is back, but they really like getting DeAndre Swift involved in the passing game. And we talked a little bit off air. Isaiah Simmons has struggled a little bit so far. He gave up a couple big passes already in this league, so I do think that's a nice mismatch for the Lions that they might try to exploit. Line maybe DeAndre Swift out wide a little bit, which we haven't seen a ton of yet. I think it's a good idea. Maybe Kenny Galladay's drawing a lot of attention. You sneak him out of the backfield. I think this is a good matchup for him. And like Ed kind of referred to before, I do think this has got all the looks of a shootout. The Lions are definitely going to be throwing the ball a lot in this game because they could very well find themselves from behind really quick. So look, if you got DeAndre Swift, I don't talk fantasy a lot, but if you got a PPR league, DeAndre Swift, I would say is a big play this week. Ryan, you got a take on that? You're a more fantasy guy than I am.
I just wish that there was more optimism.
Okay. All right. I shouldn't have thrown it to you. Why'd I even bother? All right.
I don't know.
Let's close this thing out. Ed, please promote anything you got. I love listening to you talk. So if there are other Lions fans out there that love listening to you talk, where can they hear you?
Well, obviously we do the Believe in Arizona Cardinals podcast, and that's on the Believe Network, and that's BLEAV. So go there. You can look for my name, Ed Smith, my partner, Javon Adams. You can follow us there. And we also do the Saturday show out here on well, it used to be NBC. Now it's can't even remember what it used to be, SB Nation. We've just kept moving, but still on the same station, 1060 a.m. out here in the Phoenix area. You can go on to Facebook and look up the Easy Sports Talk. That's us as well. And I'm going to check with you guys before we finish here. I'd like to have one or both of you join us on the show this Saturday if you can to, recap and talk about the game just like we did here. So we'll talk about that. But, yeah, I'm looking forward to this one. You want me to give you my prediction?
Sure. Yeah. Leave us with it.
Yeah, I'm looking, man, I'm telling you, this could be one of those up and downs.
Yeah.
And I'm looking high score somewhere in the 30s, like 37, 33 Cardinals. But I wouldn't be surprised if you guys pulled off that, shocker. I know, Ryan, this is, I'm going to be thinking about you, man. Hopefully it gets you up. But, yeah, I'm thinking Cardinals in this one. I'd be really surprised if either defense slowed the other down because, that's what it is what it is. So 37-33 Cardinals.
You know what? I was waiting with bated breath that he wasn't going to say like 37-37 because I'd honestly just rather take a loss than another tie in the desert. I swear.
Exactly.
All right. That's Ed Smith, former NFL tight end, Believe in Cardinals podcast. Ed, thank you again for joining us this year. I'd love to see you again next year. I think there's probably a good chance we play each other. No matter what happens, it just lines up that way.
They might as well just get in the same division and get it over with, man. Just, yeah.
All right. Thank you all for listening. We will be back here after Sunday's game on our Twitch channel, twitch.tv/Pride of Detroit, and on all your podcast networks. So until then, it's chaos. Be kind. All right. Recorder's off. We're still live, but Ed, awesome job. Thank you again.
Great time with you fellas.
Thanks so much, man.
If you want either of us or both of us, I'm available Saturday, so I don't want to speak for Ryan, but yeah, totally down.
It's let me we did last week. It would be like because you got what time is it there now? You guys are Mountain or no?
We're Eastern, so it's 8:45.
Okay. So I said no on that. Yeah. So 11 o'clock, which is the top of the hour. So it'll be 2 o'clock your time.
Sure.
I'll be in touch. If you guys both think you can pull, we can go ahead and do that.
All right. Cool.
Send me both, and I can't remember whether you gave me your phone numbers last year, but just email me your phone numbers, and we'll talk before then, but I'll have my producer call both of you and have you both join us, both or either, who's ever available, and we'll get you guys on to talk, wrap this game up, or at least the weekend preview of the game. So I'd love to do it.
Nope. Yeah. No problem, man.
Okay.
I'll send you all that information. All right. Ed, thanks again for joining us. Chat, thank you for watching live. Like I said, we'll be back here on Sunday. We might have something between then. Oh, we'll do the Madden Sim on Saturday morning. So right before I'll join Ed on Arizona Radio. So it'll be perfect.
And by the way, can I share this on, can I go back and share this on Facebook or?
Sure. Yeah. We'll actually upload it to YouTube as well. So I can give you the YouTube link probably tomorrow morning.
Sounds good.
I can email you that and our phone numbers.
Sounds good. Appreciate it, fellas. Look forward to talking to you this weekend and keep up the faith, Brian.
Absolutely. Take care.
Ed. All right. Bye. Alrighty. All right, chat. We're going to bounce out of here too. So thank you for joining us. Thank you, Ryan, for putting on a brave face.
I tried.
All right, guys. We'll see you on Saturday and then later on Sunday. Bye, everybody.
I'm sorry. I have a type.